and the public can now attend in person or via Teams. I will now take roll call. Please say here when I call your name and position number. Position 1, Laura, here. Position that, wow, I'm already like falling off my script. Position 2 is Maria. Okay, excellent. Because you retain your same number. Okay. Position 3, Nicholas.
Here.
Position 4, Sheila Bricey.
Here.
Position 5, Manny Ocampo.
Here.
Position 6, Maggie Catlin.
Here.
Position 7 is me, I'm here. We are waiting on position 8, Barbie Doshi, and position 9, Chase Bronca.
Here.
Okay. In addition, the following city staff are in attendance: Parks and Recreation Director Nick Stroop, Recreation Community Events Coordinator Blaine Land, Parks Planning and Development Manager Aaron Milner, and we have a consultant here with us today. Do you want to?
Hi, I'm Ryan Storkman with SiteWorkshop, and Vanita will be joining us momentarily.
Great. I'll now invite a motion to approve our April minutes.
Motion to approve.
You made the motion.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, really? All those opposed? All right, passes. Is anyone in the virtual audience today? No? Okay. Dave, you walked in just in time for public comment, if you would like to give one.
Just a couple of quick things. Hillary Sanders has moved out of Bothell, so she's no longer president of the Shelton Forest Stewardship Association. She's still on the board. I'm acting president, so I can talk somebody else into taking the position off my hands, which I hope will get done before the month is over. Friends of North Creek Forest is busy with education programs. I think May is normally our busiest month for that. I guess one Bothell is trying to make plans for the summer and thinking about expansion of the park at Maine. So we've got our eyes on the marina next to the park and also the big patch of forest on the south side of the park. So we're happy to work with the city on trying to acquire those properties. Stop there unless anybody has questions for me.
I just have it down that you are now the acting president at Shelton View.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. That was from the board chairperson. Well, I thought we'd just do some introductions since we have some new faces in the room. Colleen, did you want to?
Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled to announce that we now have a new administrative service coordinator, Tanisha Tadney. And so we can start with her if we want to do a round. I know we also have Malia as well. So how would you like to do the introductions on this side?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, put you on the spot, sorry.
On the spot. My name is Tanisha Tadney. I come all the way from California, so I'm excited just to be in Washington, to be part of the Parks and Recreation.
You brought your weather with you.
Where in California?
Corona, so the Inland Empire, about 30 minutes from Orange County.
Did you relocate for this position?
Yes.
Wow, well, welcome to Bothell. Day or a lifetime.
It's really stuck with you.
Day.
I will just give it a little bit more introduction to her. Her former position, recreation supervisor with the city of Victorville, and she's also worked with the city of San Diego. And we like to put a little nod into very studious in the regards of going to, what was the college for basketball scholarship?
I went to Cal State Northern, so I played on a Division I basketball team. So.
Yeah,
Nice.
good recreation background. We're thrilled to have her here. You all know me, but I've got the pleasure to do orientation with our newest board member. So I'm just here to allow the rest to do introductions.
I think you all know me, at least I'm sure that I've met all of you. So my name's Nick Stroop. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director here at the city.
I'll say it again, Ryan with SiteWorkshop.
Nick Bohr with
Position 3.
I have a lot of parks background, City of Seattle, the City Shore Lake.
I'm Sheila Bricey, and I met each of them separately already, so nice to see you, Ken. Welcome.
I'm Whitney Negelbauer, been living in Bothell for 14 years and got 2 kids and work in the environmental field.
I'm Malia, thank you for welcoming me. Let's see, I've been in Bothell for 12 years, just live right up the street from here, nice quick walk. Have 2 kids. I have a educational background in recreation management, but I've also worked extensively in wildlife, recreation management, and currently in ecological restoration for the last.
Very good.
Amazing. Thank you.
My name is Jace. This is my second term on the Parks and Recreation Board, and that is pretty much the extent of my experience in any sort of field related to that. I am currently a student at Cascadia and Bothell High School. I don't have kids because I'm a student at Cascadia. To break that up.
Good.
Yeah, and I've lived here for about 7 years.
I'm Laura Borner. I have 2 children, as you know. They went to preschool together. I have been in Bothell for 6 years now. My background really far back was a park ranger, followed by 10 years in East Africa, working in the national parks there. And then most recently focusing on communications and marketing in the tech sector, which is interesting, but my heart is really in sustainability and conservation.
I'm Maggie Catlin. I've been in Bothell for 3 years, but I'm from Redmond, so I've spent an extensive period of time on the east side. And I've got 2 kids, 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and my background is in physical therapy, and so a lot of interest in health and wellness and being active.
I'm Manny Ocampo. I've lived in Bothell for 300 years. 30, I can't remember. And I was the assistant city manager here for 20 years, approximately. But Parks and Recreation, Human Services have always been my primary interest. And so I love being on the park board, love what's happening in Bothell right now, so welcome and looking forward to working with you.
I'm Aaron Milner. I work for the city. I'm the Parks Planning and Development Manager. I've worked as a career in Parks and Recreation my entire career. Been here the last 15, so.
Thank you, sorry. Well, I just wanted to acknowledge that this is, I mean, people say epic all the time, but like, this is a really epic meeting. Oh my gosh, yeah, I mean, this is like just once in a lifetime sort of thing. I'm so excited. I couldn't sleep last night. Maybe when I'm a little bit slower. But yeah, there's just some other happenings around the city I wanted to share before we just dive in. Well, I guess I'll go backwards in time. Just on Tuesday, at the city council meeting, there was a presentation on the budget, which I recommend you all go back and watch. It was really insightful and just shares a little bit about the results of the community survey and some of the priorities that the community identified in that survey. It will come back, sounds like one more time for a final report. So look forward to that. The comprehensive plan process is still moving forward. I saw some of you at the first open house. There were 2 of them last week. Right now online, there's the draft plan is up for comment, along with the draft environmental impact statement, which will be open for comment until May 17th at 5 p.m. And then it feels like summer, and there's a lot of stuff happening in the summer. So Maggie wanted to share one.
Ready? Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of outreach and kind of getting ourselves out in the community, Bothell has Pride in the Park on Friday, May 31st, and that is 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That will be at the park at Bothell Landing. I unfortunately will be working, so I'm unable to make it. It would be great if we could, if anyone is free and is able to have a presence there, that would be awesome.
The date again?
5/31, May 31st.
The time again?
11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
That's the trickier part. I plan on being there.
possibly be there.
Right in the middle of my lunch hour, and I work at Bothell Hospital, so I'm really.
And there's also a lot of events that the city is hosting. Elaine, would you like to share about those? And I read about a lot of them in the city newsletter that just went out.
Yes. Where would which ones would you like me to start with? Is there any in particular, or can I just have free reign?
Free reign.
Okay.
So good.
Coming up in this month, and I might have Nick, who might know a little bit more about it, but it's the multimodal open house. That open house is going to actually be taking place at Lytle House. The reason being is that it was double booked at Bothell Landing, so that's just the location. I definitely encourage, if you haven't heard about that open house, to attend. The date and all the details I can send, just because it is an evening, it is at Lytle House, but it is a robust conversation. On the multimodal, is it this thoroughway, correct? Bothell Way Northeast?
Yes,
It
the
is.
185th corridor. Yeah.
So I'll send a kind of a reminder if you are interested in going to the open house with that ability. It will have impacts, but it's a good opportunity to provide feedback. And other things that are taking place in May, the Making Local Market is not a city event, but it is a third-party large event, and that will take place on May 25th, I believe. That's Saturday. Always support local if you would like to. The pop-up dog park is coming back right before the weekend of Labor Day weekend, or sorry, Memorial Day weekend. So Friday, the team will have it up, but the week prior is when they'll start setting up all the equipment. I also note this is a conversation council sometimes wants to know. We have that temporary art install, the Bothell letter sign that the Parks Department purchased. If you don't remember, it's kind of on the fountain. That will be coming back for the summer season. The crew will be putting that out in the next 2 weeks. Another updates, and this is kind of not in that update, but I'm just gonna segue into it, is Aaron has a project that just was approved. If you have any insight into it, is the LED project at North Creek Sports Field. I know that will be coming starting next Monday. Do you want to add anything to that one?
No, we'll be retrofitting the existing lights at Fields 4 and Field 1 starting Monday to LED. So
Retrofitting or just replacing?
there'll be this retrofit or conversion technically. You know, the poles will remain, the cross arms will be replaced, and we'll have new luminaires, LED luminaires. So we'll get better playability, better lighting, decreased spill, and the benefits that come with it, as well as upgraded control. So that project's starting Monday. We'll just be working on those 2 fields later in the summer.
Was that in the capital plan or in the regular budget? It was funded through the regular budget, not a grant or anything like that?
It's ARPA funded, so it was approved as directed by the council.
And more recently, Aaron and I have updated the parks website. So for all the projects that we're working on, you can now see them on the website too, if there is ever any further insight into those. And then the last thing was on that news that Whitney was referring to is it is summer season, so all of our events are gearing up. I will put a call out there if there's anybody here that would like to volunteer at the 4th of July parade. We were hoping Sheila would put the hand up. If anybody would like to volunteer, let me know. It was amazing. Yeah, we just did our walkthrough with police today, and so I'm feeling pretty confident with that. So all summer events are coming, and that's kind of the updates I really wanted to provide.
I have one more event of interest. So we've been working with local school district who has had some challenges with finding places to have their marimba come down. So on June 6th, between 12 and 1 p.m., we've got the Bad Monkeys and Bavabuka Marimba Ensemble, which is, I think, out of Fernwood Elementary. And they're going to be setting up down the amphitheater at the park at Bothell Landing and playing for anyone who's there. So,
Give it time, Nick.
from 12 to 1.
I'll just interject, my daughter's in one of the marimba bands, not that one, very age appropriate and worth a watch. If I can plug in the marimba band I've never heard of, I'm sure they're amazing.
They're really good. Did you want to give a shout out for the events in the amphitheater that I read about today?
Oh, sure, those.
I didn't know about
I
that.
I told you,
Well,
sorry.
you did, but detail that I read about.
Yes, so for the summer season, the council had really, really enjoyed the summer nights in Bothell. Another direction was we got funding for youth and summer concerts. Prior to COVID, there was, weekday concerts in the park at Park Bothell Landing. We're bringing that back with a little spin. There's going to be 2 youth concerts and 2 family-oriented live theater in the park. So for the month of August, that's what she was referring to is Family and Youth Summer Series. It will have 4 events every Wednesday in August. The concert's at 12 to 1, and then the theater is at 6 o'clock, performing arts.
That's like in addition to all the other Friday nights.
That's in addition to the other 6 events.
Yeah.
We got 10 events, all from, July to the end of August. Summer nights will be the original 6, and then 4 additional events in August. We're excited that we have 2 seasonals, 2 event seasonals and admin seasonals joining the team on June 16th. One of the seasonals will actually be leading the summer youth programs. And then the other seasonal will be supporting administrative side of all the events as well. Yes.
Fantastic.
All right.
So there was a story walk at the former Wayne Golf Course. How long is that up?
May 20th.
Saw a family yesterday.
I did too. We had started work and they were finishing. And I was like, how was it? Dog on the leash and they were happy and it was all
The
cute.
kids were thrilled.
Yes, let's dive in. Let's do it.
All right, pass it over to do any welcome introductions, Aaron.
All right. Well, we're here to talk about the park at Bothell Landing conceptual design today. So the purpose of tonight is to inform the board of the project and seek feedback from the board on the conceptual designs that will be presented. So with us today, we have Anita Sidhu from SiteWorkshop, along with Ryan Storkman, also from SiteWorkshop, Landscape Architecture. They're the prime consultants on the project. They'll be presenting to you all today some of the site analysis work that's been completed, the public engagement process to date, presenting to you alternative designs, and then also next step to synthesize those 3 alternative designs. So after the presentation, there'll be an opportunity for the board to ask questions of staff and the consultant team, and provide feedback. And it's similar to our last month's exercise where what we're looking for. This is going to be more of a roundtable setting, but we're looking for what you like, what you don't like, and what you'd like to see from these alternatives. So with that, we'll take that information as part of our overall engagement process and what our community wants to see at the park at Bothell Landing. There'll be a similar presentation next Tuesday with the city council. We'll take any feedback we hear from you all tonight, and that will be relayed to the city council during that meeting, along with all the information here tonight. So with that, I'll reintroduce you to Vanita and Ryan, and they can take it from here.
So I'll start things off and then hand it over to Vanita. So we're going to start off with a kind of project overview. And this, a reminder, this is an update to the master plan from 2010. So and then with that, we'll talk through kind of the strategy for this project and how we're approaching it, and a quick reminder of the schedule. And then we'll go into site analysis, and just how we've sort of assessed the site and what from that site analysis has really informed these design options. And then we'll talk about the public engagement, which thank you all for many of you were involved in those workshops. That was a lot of fun, even though it was very wet and cold. But it was I thought those were really successful. And then we also got a lot of great information from the online survey. So we'll share a very high level summary of that. But for more detail, there is a whole document that maybe some of you have seen, but that is what we're sharing today is just the takeaways from that. And then Vanita is going to share the concept plan review, and then we'll open it up for feedback. So the project for the schedule, right now we are here in that pink, yeah, right there. The triangle represents this meeting today with you all. And then we have a meeting next week with the city council. The orange bars represent the three public online surveys. So we have one coming up in about a month. We've taken all the feedback from the survey that happened from December to January, and that's what we'll be talking about. And then we had the two public open houses that are there in green back in January, February. And then we have an upcoming one in June, and then TBD sometime in late summer, we'll have a final public workshop. And then probably some additional more informal public like set up in the park. And Aaron's talked about wanting to just kind of have some more informal sharing with the public and, on sunny days. So.
Oh, sorry, did I click?
Not raining like last time.
Yeah. So project overview. The process here has been to sort of review and understand what was going into the original master plan from 2010. Some of that thinking has been pulled forward, and then there's a lot of new information that, you know, the whole realignment of the state route has happened. We have this whole public input piece that is now part of the project that wasn't before. And so through that, we've been assessing all of these different elements of plaza, lawn, parking, all of those pieces that could go into the park. And so our plan has been to collect and interpret and understand all of that information, and then to try to synthesize it into these three plans in some form, or to organize all that information into three comprehensive plans and see how it fits together. And then ultimately we'll be synthesizing that into a single master plan update, a conceptual design. So the course, yeah,
Sorry.
that's all right. The core site is what we know of as the park at Bothell Landing, but we've also been considering the context of the green space to the southwest, and also the whole site in the context of the city, and looking at things like this massive new development just north and the future development of the city-owned lot to the northeast. And then all of the connections, the trails and roads and all of the connections to this site, because the trails are, through the survey, we've understood that a lot of the users here are coming from the trail or using this as a starting point to get to the trails. So this is just a little zoom in on the existing site. And then this is a site analysis that starts to sort of unpack some of what's important to us and what has been what has informed the design. So we have connections both at the east and the west end of the site for vehicles, and then we have this really dominant pedestrian connection at the center of the site that ties into Bothell Way. And so we've been thinking about how the site is accessed currently and how it could be accessed better in the future. We've been thinking about from north to south, or as we move closer to the Sammamish River, about the grades. And there's about a 6-foot grade change or elevation drop from Bothell Way down to the historic buildings and the Lytle House. And so as we sort of understood how the site would lay out that slope, and that grade change has been really important. And then we have another 10-foot drop from that sort of plaza by the Lytle House down to the amphitheater, and then about another 8-foot drop down to the river's edge. So there's quite a bit of grade change. You don't a lot of that happens at the river bank, and so you don't feel it. But there's also significant grade change just between Bothell Way and the plaza there. We have the gravel lot has around 100 stalls. it's not laid out so that it's a little hard to know, but so around 100 stalls there and 30 at the other lot, so 130 total parking stalls. You'll see we approach parking in different ways in these different options, and that is one of the big questions in here is how much parking. River access currently is down in the bottom left at number 7, and so that's another thing that we've explored in one of the options. We change that access point, or we add an access point for kayak to make it more accessible. And currently 180th stops and is dead ends there at that elevation 30 mark. And so so we're also looking at how parking, the different parking scenarios would affect that space that is currently roadway and what it could be used for if it's not a through road. And then, of course, the historic district, there is, this project looks at the buildings at a very high level, but there is, as the project moves forward, we'll need to understand the buildings in more detail from a historic preservation standpoint and accessibility standpoint. And then just open lawn and play are two current pieces here. And those are important kind of program spaces that we explore also in different ways. And then this is a diagram of, or a survey of the critical areas. So there are 2 different kinds of critical areas here. There is the Sammamish River, and that edge is the blue line, and then the light blue dashed line is an offset from that line that is the buffer, and then the pink line is an offset, which is the shoreline jurisdiction. So that is all related to the river and its buffer and shore. So the shoreline jurisdiction is what guides what uses we can have here. Everything within that buffer has to be water related in some way, but the code has been written in a pretty flexible way that most, if not all, of the things we're talking about can be allowed. And then the yellow shapes are wetlands, and those dashed lines around the wetlands are their buffers. You can see there are, depending on the wetland, the one in the bottom left is a much bigger buffer, and the one near the small parking lot is a smaller buffer because it's a less valuable wetland just in how it's rated. So we don't want to get into or think too deeply about that right now because all of what we're discussing can be permitted in one way or another, but we just wanted to share that this is important and we're considering it as we think about design. So the open houses that many of you are involved in, we broke up into these topics, got a lot of really great feedback. So that was one component of the public engagement, and then the online survey gave us that hard data that was really great for some of the graphs and just really understanding, interest in a more sort of statistical way. But the open houses gave us a really good sense of how people feel and passion for nature and this place as a place to walk and access the river and kayak. So, and play was really important. So the next slide is sort of a summary of what we took away from those two components of the engagement. So preserving and enhancing nature was right at the top. I think that was the most dominant comment we heard from both the survey and the public open houses. The public events, there were a lot of great memories of public events and people wanting to bring that back. Especially in the dead of winter, I think people were remembering those summer nights down at Bothell. There was a lot of comment about play and intergenerational experiences. A lot of people bring their grandkids to the park for play, or kids. And so the play area is well loved. There was a lot of opportunity, people identified opportunities for more picnicking and more seating, more amenities. And then improvement to access to the river was also on the list, both boat and just visual and sort of getting down to the water's edge to see the river. And then there was interest in preserving the historic buildings and making sure that they are in good repair and can continue to be a part of this park. I think everybody we talked to saw value in those buildings and the History Museum being there. But there was also interest in holding in the indigenous history of this place. And so that's something that's in the works too. And then interest in things like splash pads, skate features, dog parks, all of the things that people can envision in a park were mentioned. And then it's going to be all of our jobs to figure out what actually fits here and what makes sense here. And then I think overarching all of these is just improved access, pedestrian, bike, boat, vehicle, where, making this park have more of a presence on and an entry and a gateway and an approach from the city. So that is the background that we've been thinking about, and I'll turn it over to Benita.
Thanks, Kevin. So I won't stay on this slide super long because the plans are tiny, and but I just wanted to highlight a few things that why you see these differentiated options. So we develop these alternative concepts really to generate conversation and deeper understanding of what people's priorities and values and interests are in these sites. There are a lot from that list that Ryan just talked about. There is a pretty wide range of interests. There are definitely people we talk to that come to this park because they're looking for a nature experience, but there are also people that see value in adding more active recreation type elements. So we're playing out what these different scenarios are and balancing, the right. You'll see we've given them titles. We'd love your feedback on that as well. But the Bothell's playground has a bit more active opportunities with more play space, suggestion of actually keeping a more permanent dog park facility and a skate park type pump track opportunity. To Bothell's Town Green, which creates an event lawn and event plaza and has less, keeps a play area, but just has less of that added active recreation element. And then Bothell's Forest Grove really plays up the, what if we really went at it with more habitat and nature, kind of wrapping the park, but still allowing for events and space and they all have a somewhat centrally located space of different scales that would support the kinds of events that likely are planning and that people love to have happen here. We've played with a range of parking because we've heard, we know a lot of people value parking, but we've also heard interest in seeing what would it be like if there was less. And so the option on the left has the least amount of parking. The option in the middle has the most in 2 lots, and the third option, the right option, has somewhere between those two, but still actually a decent amount of stalls there. Another thing that I just want to point out is that there had been asks of looking at how can we get across the state route easier and safer. And so in one of these options, option 1, we've suggested a pedestrian bridge. That is a big project, a big infrastructure project that would involve washed out approval. It would be a much bigger dollar value, but we're putting that out there to just see where the interest is. So there could be long-term planning for that if that's really ends up like rising to the top as something that's really important. In the middle option, we suggested a somewhat more modest but still challenging proposal where we looked at could that intersection narrow if you lost a turn lane. So that would just shorten the crossing distance. Again, would need WSDOT approval. Also, another thought is that farthest right intersection, which you currently can't cross the highway there if you're because there's no signal. That could be an intersection where signalization is added, and that would also be this kind of longer range thinking about bigger infrastructure improvements that might support just that pedestrian connectivity between downtown and the park and to the trail system. So those bigger items, I would say, could come and go from any of these options, but we're putting them out there to see what the public's interested in, what Parks Board and Council want to see moving forward. Why don't we go to yeah, so this is option one, and the way we have this set up, we'll talk over the slide, and then we have a page of precedent images. Forewarn you, the precedent images are just suggestions, so don't take them too literally, and we'll talk through what they're trying to depict. We use them a lot at early design to just help people with visualization. So option one, as I said, this is the least amount of parking. It's not a small parking lot. We laid it out with 52 stalls. There's the drop-off area provided in close proximity to what would be a new building that it's labeled as picnic shelter, concessions, and restroom, but it's also actually meant to be a place for the kayak rentals. So for the What's Up vendor that is currently in the park, that they would have space in there to have their facilities, but it could be designed with multi-function with a canopy that could also serve as picnic space and restrooms built into one end of it. Associated that in close proximity to a new play area, put in showing picnicking suggestions, both oriented to the river and adjacent to play, and flexible lawn spaces too. In all of these, we are proposing improvements to the actual launch area. This would show it where it is currently, but thinking about, there is currently this, when you launch there's a vertical drop, there's an old retaining type structure there. And talking with What's Up and other people, that really if you pull out that wall and allow the grade to come up more naturally, that it would be an easier launch experience. How we surface that could be done in different ways, but that's the thinking in this option and one of the other ones. In that historic building area, we're proposing a sort of plaza space, that a small courtyard space, and a place where we understand that there is a bell available that was one of the old schoolhouse bells, and creating an exhibit space for that within that plaza. This one suggests that we might actually take the Beckstrom cabin, pick it up and move it to open up these view lines down to the river and create a different orientation there. You'll see we did something like that in one of the other options too, and kept them in their existing location in another one. We get to get feedback about whether that seems of value to you when you see this. At the amphitheater, we've heard interest in providing a canopy that could provide some shade and weather protection. So this one suggests you really go at the amphitheater and create that as sort of a bandstand type opportunity down at stage level, and then cover that would wrap around the seating area. When you enter the park at the Bothell Way intersection, there, Ryan described the grade change that is there currently. So we're up at around 36 at the street, and then down at the Lighthouse it's around 30. This proposes that that grade would be pushed up closer to the streets, so creating this curved, sort of another type of amphitheater, but not this amphitheater with multiple layers. We're talking about 6 feet of grade change, and a place where you would then kind of step down to a terrace that would probably be around 4 feet, like 3 to 4 feet below street level. It just gives you a little bit of setting down from the street, wrapped in green, framed by a shelter, picnic shelter on one side, and a new pavilion to the right that could house a community room. Could also be a place for concessions, have restrooms in it. This pedestrian bridge idea, we think one way that it could work well is if it were to partner with structures on either side. Again, it's a big project, but when the city develops the lot to the north, which is a long-term plan, could you connect a bridge to that would come across the street and then land on a building on the other side? And within each of those buildings, there could be elevators that solves the accessibility challenges of being so high off the street. That new pavilion on the park side could have a rooftop terrace, which would be a really lovely place to sit and enjoy views, especially if there was the opportunity to have food nearby, either crossing the street or within that pavilion. So in the east part of the park, we are suggesting the opportunity that there is a second play space, a skate park. The idea that maybe this play area on this side could be geared more towards older kids, a bit higher level of challenge, and that the play area that's closer to the kayak launch area could be geared more towards that younger age group. So you're really thinking about different ranges of ages. And then tucked the dog park up into the upper right. So no parking on the east side of the site. That whole parking area then becomes this opportunity for active recreation. There's also a suggestion of a boardwalk deck edge that comes close to the river. That's just one of the thinking there is be really nice to have these opportunity where you can, with probably integrated seating, just sit over the water and just feel close to it without necessarily getting in a kayak or on the stand-up paddleboard. All right. Yeah, and so just some images here of suggestions. The left, one of the is the idea of, you'll see this in different schemes, the idea that we can have some canopy that frames the plaza space, but that could also be designed with planting integrated into it and seating below. Dog park photo, nothing particularly special there, but what a dog park is could range quite a bit once you get into the details of it, and whether that's wants to be lawn or wood chips, but dog space. The center image is the bottom one is a park-like pavilion type building that has a roof terrace on top. That's what we're talking about. Middle one is a nice pedestrian bridge. We just liked the aesthetic. And then the top one is from one of our park projects, but it was, all of these were also showing a water feature within them, because that was something that was in the master plan that was of interest. So we've carried that through in all the concepts. what that is could range quite a bit. And at this park, it was integrated with, there's an artist involved and integrated with sculptural artworks. So it has a lot of interests even when it's not the summer, you don't have water coming. And then lower right is the, what a pump track or skate element can also range quite a bit. This is sort of an interesting one that we just liked as, a suggestion that a rolling pathway for different types of wheels, all kinds of wheels, and there's a play structure there in the background. All right, Bothellstown Green. So, one of the different, well, obviously 2 parking lots in this option, so that's a big difference. We have heard that one of the challenges about the larger east lot is that it's a right out only, which is why, if there were longer term plans to try and add signalization there, that, makes sense in a situation where you're also making this, keeping a parking lot in that part of the park, if that's desired. And then this is the largest parking count, 68 in the west one, 36 in the right. Right one, it is a part of the site that's a little bit tight in terms of, not wanting to bring the parking too close to the river and trying to keep some buffer from the street with planting. So it's not the most efficient parking layout. I would just note that. One of the big ideas here is that there could be an opportunity for an event lawn. And with that shape, so that, oval shaped space, the idea of a great lawn that could be used for some of the events that you don't have here because the amphitheater is just not big enough. So for a different scale of events or even for festivals, maybe the farmers market comes here, and then that's also just a place where people hang out during those types of events. So the wedge type shaped building on the left end of that is the suggestion of a stage that could be, also used as a shelter depending on how it's designed. So it can be, double use potentially. Created again, another central plaza space when you come into the site. Because, the state route is really so loud. In this one and in other concepts, we are thinking about the idea of how do you do some amount of buffering. Those kind of swirly shapes you're seeing are the suggestion of some mounding and topography that could follow that whole edge. With breaks for places where you want to have, wide pedestrian access into the site, and planting with, a grove-like feeling of trees that can provide a really nice green edge on that side. It's not going to stop the sound entirely, but it will help a little bit, and the visual aspect of feeling more like you're not seeing the highway quite as much could be quite nice when you're in that event long space or the plaza space. Again, proposing a pavilion type building in association with the plaza. Then little secondary plaza or court, in association with the historic buildings. Play area is that blue, like bluish tone space as you get closer to the water, and associated with picnic tables and places to sit. In this one, we're suggesting that maybe we actually move the launch point for where you go into the water with your kayak or stand-up paddleboard or whatever it is you're walking in with. And it's the length that it's shown in the diagonal, drawn in a way that it can be built at accessible ramp slopes, is the thinking there. So that's why it's gotten longer. And then in the area where the existing launch is, was thinking we can approach that in more of a restoration point of view, create just a little tiny beach of sorts. We'd be working with our environmental consultant to understand what, what that language of that feels right and how you do that in this, along this riverfront. Yeah, and I think that covers the high level items in this one. Yeah, and some images. The top left, I'm not saying we do this exactly, but the idea that the event lawn can be shaped with topography along its edges so that you do have a little bit of supporting a stage, but also some topography as creating enclosure. The top middle one is the new stage they put in at Volunteer Park in Seattle, and they do a lot of different types of performances there, music, concerts. Middle bottom is a kayak launch at Owen Beach in Tacoma. Not quite the exact same thing we're talking about, but it was concrete to create a more accessible way down to the beach. You're probably all familiar with the pavilion in Kenmore. That building is a fairly large scale, but when we think it's a good precedent to just suggest the idea of a building that can open up to a plaza, and then has activity within that plaza. And they have concessions in there as well. And then lower right is just another example of the type of interactive water feature. This one is all in ground, so there are larger sculptural elements. Bothell's Forest Grove, yeah. So the biggest thing we've done with this one is really maximize the nature space within it. And as we were thinking about it, and we really did hear from a lot of people, they're like, well, we come here to this park because we want to be close to nature. We want to see the river, trees, we come to walk. So, the idea that the focus of this park, it still supports events, maybe at not quite the scale as the last one, but that you could, really do more with that area that's currently the gravel parking lot and turn that into, a mix of different nature trails, integrating playful opportunities for all ages that are more nature-based. Be a photo on the next page that kind of explains what that means more, but the kind of active or exercise type elements that are made with natural materials and just feel right within that context. At the main entry from Bothell Way, or the main, you might say the main pedestrian entry from Bothell Way, suggested a trellis and grand stair. That just the idea of that when you're downtown and you're looking at the park, that there is a vertical element that just shouts, this is a special place, with accessible ramps paralleling both sides of that staircase, and then coming down to a plaza with water feature, framed by a pavilion on one side, and lots of seating, bringing trees through that plaza. There are different ways you can successfully grow trees within the plaza with underground detailing that supports root rot over time. Still, creating a space, centering a space between the historic buildings, because that just feels right that there's a court or courtyard there. The kayak building is kind of similar location to where he's set up, but in a space that we're not within the wetland setback, of course, because you can't do that. And upgrading the play area. It does have some proximity to the parking lot, but that pale minty green space is the idea of we do some type of planted buffer so the area doesn't feel like it's too close to parking. And maybe there's also some type of fencing on that edge as well, whatever, is needed to be feasible. And again, upgrading the kayak launch spot. In this one, we added a little comma there near the amphitheater. That suggestion there, as you come down the ramp to the amphitheater, you get down to a grade that is really kind of a nice deck level. That maybe we extend a deck from that point, and it's just creates almost like this little hangout spot. Maybe it could be a place where small band sets up and plays music while people are on the river. And just some images here. The top, middle, and lower right, we just like this idea of showing how you integrate nature space with active uses such as trails or walking loops, and the middle center, more nature-based type play elements, easy logs and boulders and things like that. Lower left is actually a park we worked on in Woodinville. It's a little small park called Young Park, but there are porch swings in that pergola structure, which is a really kind of fun element. And then the top left, just the idea of how a plaza space could be framed with mature canopies. So really just both allowing for gathering for events, but having green space around you. Yeah, and I have talked a lot. We all talked a lot. So now we'd like to just open it up and hear your feedback.
I don't know where to start. Maybe we want to start with like option 1 and then go to option 2 and option 3, or things that really rise to the top that we like things that we love, things that we like, things that we dislike, or how do you want to organize all of our?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be hearing things that you love. If there was anything that, really you just that's just not a good idea, so tell us that too. But yeah, things that you loved, and
or any clarifying questions?
Clarifying questions.
Maybe we'll start with clarifying.
Yes, why don't we start with that?
Go ahead.
I have a question that pertains to all three.
Yeah.
I'm just going to point because it's easier in here, but there's this buffer zone above this parking lot. On all three of them, it goes right next to the road. What I'm wondering is why can't the parking lot touch the road and the buffer cut the parking lot and the road off?
It could.
Is it a gradient thing or?
No, it's not a gradient thing. Yeah. It just.
Now it seems like we're including the parking lot. I'm wondering if we can.
Yeah, just.
So once you arrive.
Push the pavement closer to other pavements and green space on the backside. It could, I think, part of that was that if you're, and maybe this isn't the most valuable perspective, but if you're from across the street looking, that it reads like a park and not like, first thing you see is a parking lot, but I agree that the green space is more valuable probably than the part of the park that you're within.
I might have missed this. Was there any comments on the parking itself? Because I know that you can fit a lot of cars where it's at right now. I just, looks like either parking's taking up a lot of space and it's split up either way. What would it look like if we did scale that back? Do you know? Do you think that there would be pushback on that?
To scale it back even more than
I know.
option 1?
I mean, option 1, yes, more like option 1, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
Do you think that would be an issue based on your response, or?
I
It's hard to
think,
tell.
I think it's likely some people will think that's too little parking. But yeah, and honestly, I mean, we're interested in hearing that. I mean, what we've heard is that there's some people, maybe some voices in council that are interested in really minimizing parking. But we definitely know that
I think that connects, that can relate to your connectivity to downtown. So if you have something like a easier access to downtown or a bridge, then you can highlight the city hall public parking, which I honestly, I don't think it's been highlighted, many people don't know about, or other spaces and have that available.
Yeah, but you're getting at like, why not show less parking in any?
Yeah, just because there's so, it just seems like there's so much that we can do with it, and I feel like walking is also encouraged, but a lot of people are coming from far away, so I get.
So one thing that in the open house on the 40-year plan, there I discussed with the transportation people, but I think they call themselves something else, that the road on 102nd, that bridge is going to need to be replaced and will have a improved ramp and access to the sidewalk to be able to get to the park, which is going to be a much easier solution than trying to get something to go over 522, just from a tactical standpoint and cost standpoint. So I wanted to throw that out. On the parking, in the survey, I think it said 60% that responded drove to the park. Now, my question is the parking that is, she was directionally challenged, so stay with me, over by 102nd, which I think is east, yes, that gravel parking lot there, is that staying, or is there any?
Yeah, so that is staying, and it's actually co-owned by King County and City of Bothell.
Yeah, okay.
Is it planned on being improved would be the question, because right now it's not very efficient, like people park willy-nilly, so it could be more utilized better.
The bulk of that parking lot is currently King County. The city's just a small slice of that, but certainly improvement of that lot could be part of a discussion piece.
I know that parking is going to be discussion in any of these, and as we go through them. I mean, obviously, there's three different kind of philosophies. But I want to start out with just a general comment. Yay. On all these three. I mean, it's been so long for this park, and to have any of these options or hybrids therein is fantastic. But from a parking point, I just want to give about a little bit of history. When we used to have, how many, 1,000 people, 800 people for a concert down at the pavilion, there was hardly any parking at all. In fact, I think even a little less than it is now. Guess what? People found a way to get down there.
Yeah.
We have the 4th of July. How many people were there? 10,000? I'm probably exaggerating. I have a tendency to exaggerate. But they find a way. Sometimes it's a little bit of a walk. And I'm not advocating for option one, but if you have option one amenities in there, people are going to find a way. And I hear what you're saying, Jason, no one likes concrete, but we have right across the street so many people now, and maybe more coming, and that well ages, and that parking centric, that whole thing in the parking, anyway, that I just think we ought to be cautious about relying too much on the automobile. People think there's not enough parking downtown. Lots of parking downtown, especially if you count the City Hall park. But if you ask most people, probably in a survey, is there enough parking downtown? Absolutely not. In fact, open up that dang street so that we could get those 6 or 8 parking spaces back. And so parking is a tough, tough issue. And what you call those transportation people is frustrated. That's what I call it.
Well, if you get people parking in downtown, they're walking past businesses and creating more opportunity for the businesses.
That's right.
The library.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if, Meg, Blaine, Aaron, you guys have any data on how many of those parking spots are actually used most of the time, because most of the time when I'm down at the park, which isn't during a big event, let's say, but I'm down there most weekends at some point, the smaller parking lot is usually sufficient parking. So I'm not sure if you guys have any better measure, because I'm not there in maybe busier times, how much of that parking is being consistently used.
I would say during the week, primarily the parking that you're seeing in the gravel area during the weekdays is the construction workers. There's a good portion of those, but there's also users of the trail. On the weekend, we actually see a pretty large uptick in parking, and people are trying to find wherever they can to access the trail and again, the amenities. As far as hard data, we don't have any sort of data points that we're not geo-tracking or doing anything like that.
The building that's across the street, that new huge one, does that have any visitor parking? You know of?
Residential.
Only residential, no visitor spots?
I mean,
It's gotta be, there's retail, so there's gotta be some retail spots.
I mean, I don't know.
All the other ones have it, like the two other ones right next to it have spots for the retail people.
Maybe depending on how many units, I don't know how many units are in there. Even with Six Oaks or right across the street, there's another one. I don't know how many visitor parking, if anything,
Well,
is
they're technically
charged.
for retail, so.
Yeah, and they're usually pretty aggressive about that.
I think the one piece of parking information that's different here than from most parks is that there's the boat launch factor, and people who are, car topping a boat or pulling a boat will need to park nearby. And then there's ADA accessibility, so having a handful of stalls for people who are.
Having that drop off, I think, is crucial, like a no parking drop off. I think that's smart. I didn't think about that before, but I think that would be for sure.
Well, the other thing that, I know What's Up has talked about is maybe having a place where you could rent to have your kayak there, so you wouldn't have to bring it down. They do that in Kenmore, right?
Yeah, and that's what we are suggesting with that larger building
Yeah.
associated with the launch, that they would
Right.
actually store.
Well, that drop off location would provide like grandma and baby to be unloaded and then go park or something
Exactly.
too.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. I think a drop-off area would be great.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I like your suggestions too of removing the right turn lane, because that's how we walk to there. That's how we go. We never drive there. And that right turn lane is scary. That's the crunch part, because they never get two lanes of people stop and then you get past people pretty, right? So if there's no pedestrian bridge, which actually I think awesome. And just visually entrance into the city would be awesome. But I think if we could at least do that, is a big one. That's, I feel like, the most dangerous part of crossing that road.
The pedestrian bridge was something that, I made a big deal about early on, and I still think it's really cool. I think landing it on a rooftop is also a really neat idea. And like, I'd love to talk about a park instead of a parking lot, like in these discussions. So, and that would alleviate the need for the parking thing, because when we walk, it's because we've already parked downtown and we want to then go to the park, right? But like, if I'm just going to go to the park to avoid that intersection, I will try to park at the park. And it's such a beautiful space. I heard a lot about wanting to keep it as this nature sanctuary. So avoiding that parking lot would be ideal. I brought, because I love data and maps, an urban heat map of downtown Bothell, and it's actually really cool. I'll pass them around. Basically, the research shows, pavement, open space, and lack of vegetation is where that heat comes in and then stays. Whereas at night, in areas, and the blue on the map is actually Blythe Park, where there's that nice forested area, cools down a lot in the evening. So, when I think about when we're using the park space a lot, it's in these beautiful evenings, like right now when we want to enjoy that cool space. So I really loved option 3, maybe with some adjustments, but really like going strong on adding trees and adding as many nature elements as possible. And keeping the bridge and the splash pad again to get some heat relief. the water feature. I noticed you didn't call it a splash pad.
Yeah, it could go, actually, that would be an interesting one to talk about because we can do a water feature that isn't necessarily focused on kids, but kids will interact with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or it, like, sometimes the ones that are really designed especially for kids, they're just more bold and colorful and bigger, wiggly things coming in the ground, but, you know, just
The ones that are just out of the ground and just without physical features, they're just, they change in their dynamic, but they're just coming out of the ground. You even have lights that.
The one thing about 3 that I agree going to, back to the water feature though, is the, the entrance of the park or the opening of the heart of the city, and then you take it to the history of the city. We've got the schools, the buildings, but with the water, and if you did have structures in it, similar to the picture you showed of the chests, or is that, what if that was Native American? What if it was parts of that water feature were, even if it wasn't in the walkway and it was all flat and then the water would come out, then that would at least the corners of it or along certain parts, there were some type of Native American structure. To me, that just is a welcoming to the heart of Bothell and recognizing the history, both from a Native American, then you've got the schoolhouse and that type of thing. From a water standpoint, versus an actual splash pad, these, I think, would be engaging, and I even think parents would run through these too. So it wouldn't necessarily just be focused on probably some of the younger kids, and if it's a hot day, even, you know, the older kids would probably run through it, but that was my feedback on the water feature. I just really think that would be a beautiful thing to incorporate the Native American.
Again, I'm not sure exactly how we're doing this, but and
that's okay.
Why should anything change? I agree with you about option 3. That's the most environmentally sensitive and the most green space, et cetera. However, I lean towards option perhaps one with a few less things in there, because we have a lot of green space.
Real close too, that's what my
Real close,
thought,
we have a lot
yeah.
of green space. I mean, Wayne is Wayne Park, the Park at Wayne, formerly known as Prince. I'm not saying that you don't want that, but dang it, we need some ways to actively have families and people interact. And while I'm all for open space and greenery, and we have a beautiful, beautiful spot there, to me, and I don't know about the dog park, the skate park, but I'm sure we're going to talk about that at some point. But to me, being able to watch a concert, hear some music, walk through, there's still plenty of places to walk. We have some history, you have, the amphitheater dock, I think that should be in all of them, because that's a space that is just about the same in all of them. I think that's a great idea to have. Right now, there's a few places you can sit and watch the river, but not very many. And so that would be outstanding. I think it's ironic that option 3, the Grove part, has the most parking. When probably it's the least active calling, so.
Yeah, 2 actually has the most because of that.
Oh, because of the other side,
Yeah,
that's
but-
right.
But yeah, but
That part of it, though, is much bigger than 1. and I mentioned how and I love the idea of a gateway. You talked about the gateway coming in. All three of them kind of talk about that. I am really in favor of the pedestrian bridge. I know that will be a tough road. It doesn't have to be built before the rest of it's built. You could make it so that if it ever gets through. It's a project, however, that does have the opportunity for many more partners. State and county, DOT. It's something I think that and the public could really get behind. All of this is going to have to be funded through a park. There's no doubt. We don't have the money to build any of this right now. And so, again, at the risk of sounding crass, you'll just have to put something that people will vote for. And parking, last time we had a park law, it was combined with traffic and transportation projects, much to the chagrin of the Parks and Recreation people. People don't vote for that. They just don't. Especially if, you focus on, well, there'll be plenty of parking. But a dog park, a skate park, water feature, a boat launch, enough parking so that you can drop off and get to these places. An improved place, that lawn area is an option too. If we don't have a skate park and a dog park, I'd much rather see that go in there because it is green, but it's active too.
I agree a lot on that option one thing. I think you're gonna pull on boat and it's a city, you're right next to the downtown, so you just want that more activeness. Other green spaces very close by.
And to me, this would become a destination park. And it's probably one of our most heavily used parks because it's so beautiful right there, and it's right there, and it's got history and the whole thing. But any of these would be something that, we're going to the park today. My daughter used to live in New York City, now she's in Brooklyn, but, of course, this is not Central Park, but Central Park is a part of the city's identity, and it's someplace to go. To see Paul Simon, but
I was at that concert.
Were you? I envy that. So he could play here, a little smaller. So all of the parts about that I heard from people, and I'm still hearing from people, Park of Bothell Landing has to be a destination. And any of these three would work towards that, particularly if we move some things around.
I think we should highlight, I know this, you mentioned, you put that dotted area, the already natural spaces, draw people to that area more. People don't know that boardwalk and that wetland, which honestly needs to be restored. I'll read Canary Grass, but people don't know what's down there. We need interpretive trail. We can restore that. It doubles the size of the park, and a lot of people don't realize, or the Horse Creek loop there that they restored.
I'm gonna piggyback on what you said. I also like the community feel quite a lot. I think that option one to me seemed like it could bring in the most potential revenue for the park with all the different, buildings and concessions and all the rest. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that I was just down at Microsoft and they opened a brand new bridge over the 520. I get it confused, 522, 520. It's this huge thing. I thought nothing of it, but I took my kids across it and I was blown away at how much I could like a bridge. And they have designed it so that their roof does water catchment and feeds all these plants that are underneath the bridge. And then there's sitting areas and there's concrete that kids can jump up on or walk, It was a pretty cool bridge.
Is that Redmond?
It's Redmond, yeah, and I just thought
It's tied to
something like
sound
this, you could also do interpretive stuff. You could do a lot of the stuff about the indigenous peoples and you could make some interpretive signage through it, but also make it a fun avenue. And I do think it's just ridiculous that there are so many places in the states that are so close to walk to, and yet nobody will, and I'm one of them because it's just not inviting. We should make this inviting.
I'm gonna jump in and reiterate or agree with everyone how strongly I would encourage a pedestrian bridge across. Both for the reasons that were stated, but I think the other piece we really have to consider is that Bothell Way is going to be a main biking corridor. That is the goal. And it connects, this is essentially the place where you would easily connect into the Burke to go to Seattle or Sammamish River Trail. And so it makes the most sense to make this bridge happen, but I would put with the caveat that we help bikers get to the Burke because we want people biking and driving. And I think that that's aligned with like kind of where the city's trying to go with some of the parking and encouraging biking. And I would piece with that being mindful that bikes go really fast and pedestrians don't match their speed. And so the more we could keep that in our mind at the forefront as when we do a signage, what do we do with the sign? So that the bikes know where they should be and they can maybe be kept out of where people might be walking.
So with e-bikes.
Especially with the e-bikes. Yeah, so everything we can do in our park design to keep those things separate, but making a place for the bikes because I think we need to give the bikes some way to get to the park.
And I would just add, there is a data point on the bikes and on the trail. That is actually the busiest section of the Sammamish River, Burt Gilman Trail in their entire network. So we do have some really solid data there that shows how many folks are out there every single day.
And then I would say going even the opposite direction, trying to get some really great signage as you come onto Bothell property where we have control, directing people into the downtown. Because if you could combine those two elements, people would stop, maybe would go to the wineries or other places less, and Bothell would become a destination, especially for families, because a lot of the places you can bike to right now aren't necessarily family places. Fun places, like wineries. And then the other piece that no one else touched on that I really think is important is we need a place for our middle schoolers and our teenagers. And so we need to figure out something for them to do at this park. And I just absolutely loved, having possibly even another building where we could do programming for those kids, having a skate park or a pump track for those kids. Like, we need to give them places to go and things to do. So, and this one is the closest park to Bothell High School. It's really close to Bothell High School. So I think it would be a perfect place to drive that population.
And in my research, there's, I'm going to spend all the time looking in my notes, but that you have a pump track and a skateboard, but it's a new material and it's more cement, but both of them can use the material and both are drawn to it. And that it's starting to be very popular, so that it would be a bike and also a skateboarder.
Yeah.
So
I would absolutely echo what you're saying. And Colleen, my wife, said, anyway, you put it on there. Gotta be something for teenagers, and there's nothing right now. And I would love if we had a site for the skate park and a dog park other than here. But we don't at this point. There may be some other opportunities, and if another opportunity comes up that is close to Bothell High and would be better, great. But if this was the only place, I would say skate park above dog park, and I'm a little puppy and he's crazy right now. So I know we need a dog park. Back to the bond, if you don't have a dog park in there, it isn't gonna pass. Dog parks are so popular right now, and we have to have one, an off leash, somewhere. And again, if that's the only place, it's not. But if it's the only place, hey, there's another reason for people to come down and to use the park. But I really like the skate park. I was involved with the old skate park. I don't even remember where that skate park was. Not very many. Where McMinimans is. There used to be tennis courts back there. And we had a portable skate park put in there with
Two skate parks.
Two skate parks. Exactly. And so it's, that's right, we put the more permanent one. First one was good. But the kids loved it. Unfortunately, you know, the whole site got redeveloped and that went for the better. Governance is great and the whole area is good. Not for kids, I mean teenagers.
What's the size estimate of the dog park? Or is there's no sizing to any of this yet? It just looks small, but I think I might be just.
Yeah, I would say it's not a large dog park. You know, if we could, I can't tell you off the top of my head like some other example ones and how big they are compared to this one. But I would say, it's.
How big is our pop-up?
Significantly larger than that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I wonder how that would be received. I feel like the little Bothell hospital, pet hospital, and will do a lot of business. Small quarter. But that goes to the point is maybe there is a better space. I don't know, because you don't want this whole area to be taken up by a dog.
Yeah, and I would agree with like having dogs, they need space or they get in fights. So if we could find, if this is gonna be the size of the dog park, I think we need to find somewhere else. To put the dog park. But I do think it's really, really important.
Some dog park.
Yeah, no, I agree. We need it somewhere.
Everybody wants one, but no one wants one near them.
Yeah,
So-
I would say, like, we as an office have worked on a pretty wide scale of them, like including very small pocket ones in like downtown Seattle, because, you know, Amazon lets people bring their dogs to work and they need dog parks where they're like, you know, the size of this room. It's a different kind of like urban dog park. But yeah, I mean, if you have big dogs and you want them to run and, you know, it just, you need.
Well, I mean, yeah, you could go with that idea. This is an urban setting, so.
Well, and if, it's a great point, if the skate park, if you find a place for a skate park, then the dog park would be bigger, and vice versa. If you find a place for the dog park, then maybe the skate park, or maybe a teen room of some kind, or a teen.
Well, it seems like one or the other.
Yeah, one or the other, because both of them are kind of.
Well, to add to that, I don't really like the idea of the two play areas separated. Having two kids 4 years apart who would go two different directions, I don't really like that idea. I like a big place area, but not necessarily on opposite ends of the park. Grandma's gonna go nuts trying to chase the kid.
Along the river.
Yeah, I'm watching the river too.
You have in the first one, the shift in Beckstrom cabin. I mean, are we allowed to move it?
Absolutely. This is not an original location of the Beckstrom cabin.
They were all moved into the park.
Okay.
The second option also just rotates it, keeps it kind of in its similar location.
Right.
Rotates it.
Okay.
The crosswalk that's really far east, is there any argument against putting that in regardless? Is it just traffic?
You would have to put a stoplight or at least one
Yeah,
of
you-
those
you- I
like
think-
forced crosswalk stoplights. 'Cause
6 lanes, 5 lanes?
it's 5, 2 with a turning.
Yeah, I don't think you'd get any traffic engineering approval without signal section of speed.
So we're gonna need 2 pedestrian bridges.
The one on 107.
Well, one thing I liked about the third option was that sort of like entry point on the far east side of the park.
Yes.
That
Like a
is,
pedestrian focus.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you improve, because I don't see, oh yeah, I guess if the 102nd is pretty, because no one ever does come in that way as a pedestrian. I do, just because I do come.
Or then I enter the gravel parking lot and go to.
I kind of missed that. I like that
Yeah.
idea too.
Another way to like ease some of the accessibility issues in parking is to have like bike storage as a part of some of the designs, like attached to the pavilion. Like I can imagine people coming for summer nights on e-bikes and then where we put all those bikes. So kind of thinking about bikes and putting them somewhere safe.
Are you talking about bike rack or actual those storage compartment?
I don't, you know,
I
where
mean,
do you put
yeah.
your bike? I don't
Yeah,
know.
definitely
I
bike
guess
racks.
co-parking, like if you want people using the trails to come and hang out or allow them, you know, they'll need someplace to park their bike, right?
It's like not throwing it on the ground or.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people we talk to literally locked it on a tree. which is
Yeah,
whole
or a or a bench or
conversation. So.
Well, the owner of What's Up also mentioned that he does bike rentals, and so people sometimes rent kayaks for one direction and bike the other, and so there's that part of the bike experience too that could be part of that concession.
We were, I don't know if we called it out, but at least in one reason, I think would be relevant for any option. Putting in like a bicycle fixation station might be a great amenity. Just, you know, you can get those systems with tools attached on cables, so you can do some basic things.
Imagine people coming over the bridge and then like stopping at the pavilion to get coffee or whatever, and that being like a great hangout spot for bikes.
So I go back to just a couple points. When we think about this as like a multi-generational space, which I think we heard a lot of, I really like the swings kind of out by the fountain or the water feature, whatever we end up doing, so that older individuals or younger could kind of, or a mom like me could maybe just like sit on the swing while their kids play in the water. Or I was actually a little sad Barbie's not here today. When Barbie mentioned at actually our playground project about how it'd be nice to have like a volleyball net or like some other games. I don't know if there's a way to incorporate that into lawn spaces or just other activities besides a skate park or a pump track or any like art display work or just something where we're capturing different, just thinking about those teenagers and those middle schoolers and what they can do and making sure we're having that available to them.
The other thing I love that hasn't been said yet are all the picnic shelters that are in
Yes.
all the designs and the
Multiple.
pavilion and.
Because it rains here. And people still like to go on picnics in the rain. They just don't want to be rained on. So I will just.
There are additional thoughts on structures. I mean, we have a lot of different structures here. We have concession areas, we have What's Up,
Yeah.
we have picnic shelters, we have stages, we have pavilions. Just kind of open that up.
Yeah.
And I would also add, you have the Lytle House, which could be, you know, improved and programmed more.
I just. Yeah, but I agree. My question would be if we were to have the multiple pavilions and an additional event space and all of that, does that mean that you guys get more staff to help program this and plan this?
No.
Well, we're at the conceptual portion of this, so we don't
Right.
want to really, I mean, that's definitely something that we're always thinking about, like,
Okay.
what does that
Okay.
mean? But there's lots of opportunities here, so.
Okay.
Things with putting programs at this park is then you have to go back to the parking thing, because people who are coming for an art class for their, you kind of expect parking for programs. We can push that we don't need it for just parking, but programming, I feel like that's a little bit higher of an expectation of the park.
To do the programming during times when it's not high use.
It's true, the old and the young.
There was a lot of that, I feel like, before.
Yeah, like, you're right, there's yoga classes and exercise classes.
Kids babysitting, you know, that's.
Yeah, so yeah, you could put them on off.
I could see the utility of having like a large, I don't know, covered stage, I guess, like for events, it's like a permanent structure that's there so that you're not like putting tents up or whatever to cover a band or having concerns about that. So, yeah, something like that that could facilitate an event stage somewhere in here.
It was mentioned kind of with number 3 and number 1. With 3, there is their pavilion. And one of the pictures showed, you know, kind of a performing aspect of the pavilion that would have it covered. And even with, with 2, there is a shelter with a stage with part of it.
And number 2 really expands the opportunity for like, go from like a 300-person concert there's capacity for now down at the amphitheater to like several thousand potentially, depending on how you scale that. But that strikes me as a big question to you all, and is that the kind of programming that you'd want to be planning for? Or is that a potential here?
I guess we've heard too that the like larger events are programmed at another park space that we use right now.
Yeah, primarily just park block landing for all of our events, but it's the third-party events that we have to consider too, like the Holly Festival or third-party community groups that come out that 3,000.
It's hard to say, like, for me to visualize scale on a lot of these, to understand, like, if we went with option 1, would the Holy Festival fit there? Like, would that still be an option for them, or would it not? Or would it only be option 2? Because I think that would really shape our understanding of the space and the scale.
I think like the helpful feedback is make sure you accommodate the Holly Festival and how you scale it. And that when we get to the refinement stage, like that can be planned into it. Because we're not gonna do is be like, okay, we're moving forward with option 1, every other idea, and here goes away. Where we're gonna do is take all your feedback and put that into it, you know, an option that brings to the forefront like all of what we hear is valued.
It's kind of off the different direction, but the amphitheater gets flooded a lot in the winter. Has that been considered?
It would definitely be considered in the plan, so whatever structure that looked like, it would have to be able to withstand being underwater for a little bit.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, we do have an initial geotechnical report that is it's high level right now, but as we get further along, we're going to work with geotech to get more specific. But we do understand that there is a lot of you know, throughout a lot of the park, we will have to be thinking very carefully about how foundations are built, not just in that location.
And then on the, when you move, if we were to move, for example, into the boat launch. Now, that's not like a boat launch, it's like the kayak launch and that thing.
Yeah.
And then it has the.
Not a dry, like you don't drive your truck down that.
The restored beach, which I'm assuming would be the old place, and just making it not necessarily accessible to the water, but.
Yeah, the idea there is that, you know, maybe that becomes like, you know, we pull out that retaining wall that's there and then, you know, create more of a natural river edge.
Rock or
yeah, rock and logs.
Okay.
I think we go back to like the state and law thing that you guys were asking about. My feeling would be we already have the amphitheater there, so having an extra stage is kind of duplicating some of what we already have. And then I also think once you have a lawn and a shelter and a stage, and you're trying to accommodate some of these like really big events, then you need parking to accommodate these really big events. And I would just be wondering if there's like a better space for us to think about putting something. Like, I think that it's important. I think we need to find a space for this. But given all the things we're trying to do in this little piece of land, I'm not sure if taking up so much of it just for like a festival and concert venue is like the right thing. And I'm also not sure that that's gonna get as much support from the community when they look at it, if it's just a big empty pond.
That's a good point. Is there a way, creative way to expand on the amphitheater that we already have to make it more bigger somehow?
I was wondering if you could do mounding around the amphitheater.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's what they do. In the South, that was a big way that they would do it.
You do what?
You mound around it,
Oh,
so like.
Kind of like one of those pictures you showed with the kids
Yeah, with the-
running.
Yeah.
Yeah. and-
Probably hit on the more western half, the Lighthouse is relatively close to it, on the one side, but, it probably could be expanded a bit. I mean, I think there are limits, yeah. But it was, one of these options we are showing that could be the place where you put your covered, like you turn the bottom into the stage, like a more fully.
I also really like that deck overlook idea. That's definitely a keeper. More like, I like that connectivity to the river. I mean, that should be to me, that should be the focus of the park is the river, really.
The focus like the river as well as like the connection to downtown,
Downtown,
like
yeah.
into and out of downtown. Like you're in Bothell.
Yeah.
So one of the examples that was thrown out there was the hangar in Kenmore. And we have heard from a few of our residents that, that type of pavilion is something of interest. I mean, I'd be curious to hear thoughts on that.
I like that because it's a community space that's rentable versus, I'm not against the programming, but it's more like groups can rent it and meet there, and I like that idea a lot.
And where would it be?
It's what we've been referring, I mean, it's not exactly, but we refer to a pavilion. The building programming, I would say, is very loose right now because we're just trying to understand what people are interested in. We do have an architect on our team who is very excited to really start thinking about what the fine grain of those. And I think what we hope to get out of this first stage is really the idea that, yes, we would like to be able to have a community space that opens up to a plaza, and then our architect in more to really kind of play out different scenarios of what that form could be. Does it have restrooms in it, or garage doors, or all that kind of stuff?
Can you state your question one more time because I just lost.
Well, I mean,
Do we like the community building? Do we like the pavilion part of it?
I think to go back to what Anita said, I mean, it's more of, do you want something like that in the park? Is there a desire to have, what it looks like? It's not gonna be the hangar, right?
Totally, yeah.
But it's good. Do you want that functionality in the park? Is that something is a desire of the community to, and not talking about exactly how it'd be programmed or what concessionaire would be there, but is that something of interest?
I think that at a smaller scale maybe than the hangar. Yeah.
And the scale that we've drawn in each plan, the building that the bridge lands on option 1, and then the building kind of on the left-hand side of the fountain on option 2, and then on option 3 to the right of the fountain, those are all around 40 by 80, and so it's a fraction of the scale of the hangar, but still big enough to have restrooms, a small cafe, and then like a flex space, and just sort of conceptually, and we will kind of drill down on that. Now, hearing this interest will allow us to take this to the architect and say, okay, what size does it really need to be to support these various programs, and then come back to you for more detail.
From a design standpoint, having multi-uses, it could be this, with a little bit of refocus, it could be for something else. Classes as well as being able to be rented out for parties, weddings. But that could go. We don't have a community center. And someday, There may be one somewhere, but right now, the pavilion kind of, along with Lidl, improved Lidl, could start that functionality again of a community center, which I would support
Go on the north side of the bridge.
a lot. Right.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
Love that. Oh, I'm gonna go to the fountains for a second. I'm gonna disagree with Malia a little bit, but not strongly in any way. But I really like the sculpture idea of like having a water feature with some visual interest so that, and I think that it just comes straight from my love of Pacific Science Center when I was a kid and like running into those fountains and those memories. And I really am very underwhelmed by the hangar and the fountains there because it's just like a spout in the middle of a bunch of concrete. So I know people love it and it's a great like relief, but I would love if there was like some visual interest to whatever water feature. But I do love the water feature and the light idea is super cool.
I was thinking if you guys ever been to from the QFC in downtown Kirkland.
Yeah.
That one's a fun one. It's got lights and it's a little bit bigger than the hangar one.
I think the water feature is great because it too, not only is a visual amenity to the park, but it also potentially could be a functionality amenity in terms of kids would be able to play in it and run through it. I don't know enough about it to. Water coming from.
What is coming
There's
from?
no from the ground, but it's, I know the little kids just eat it up. They just love it.
And I got a lot to offer.
Most everything I kind of thought has already been said. One thing I see missing from here is like a sport court, multi-purpose court, not there. Think about ping pong tables possibly too.
Tables is a great That's a great one.
And you can get community around that. I would strongly say throw some money at the buildings and make them truly accessible. Bring the restrooms up to accessibility and program. You got nothing else. Here's an opportunity to do that. That pedestrian bridge, although it'd be nice, that's a transportation project. Let's not spend park dollars on that. That's kind of my opinion. You'd have to make it multimodal to have bikes go over that. How are you going to do that? How's it going to mix it? I mean, it's going to be huge. I don't think it fits the scale of the spot. You have that other bridge on the other side. If you could maximize use of that and make an easy route there. I think with all the development, that's all those buildings are putting up, the dog park's got to stay. I was walking down to the Vine down here yesterday or day before, which was closed. Dang it. And, somebody brought a dog out of one of the apartments there. It couldn't even make it over the little tree well before it started doing its thing. So I think that's real important with all the people that are going to have dogs. And I don't know why they would have these apartments, but they do. I think that's real important. Skate park, I think that's, again, something for the teenagers or a hangout spot by that. I don't know how that mixes with a pump track. I've found that causes more angst and strife amongst staff and just dealing with that. So I think about that. Mixing the picnic shelter with the restrooms, I would almost separate those, not have those together, or a big enough building to where there is some separation there. I think that's real important. You don't want to picnic around that. I'm a big proponent of minimizing the parking, man. Let's not take parkland and make parking just as bare minimum what you have to have. I mean, I live literally right up the street here, and it's gotten so busy now on Fridays and Saturdays. People park in front of my house to come down. They'll do it. Let it go. Let's not take valuable parkland to program and put parking in there. I would maximize seating along the slough as much as you can. I really like that boardwalk along there. I think people will enjoy that. Naturally, I mean, we got plenty of natural area. I'm dead set against number 3, We should activate the heck out of this as much as possible. Yeah, walk across the bridge and walk the trail if you want to get nature. What else? I like the little boardwalk, although wood, so now this is getting into the weeds a little bit, but I would avoid wood as much as possible, use metal, fiberglass, whatever, because wood just doesn't last. I mean, it sounds good to walk on a boardwalk, but if you can, I'd use iron and then put the grating, fiberglass grating. His maintenance people will be much more happy with that. What else? The water feature, like when you see it in here in option 1, I don't see how that works with a kind of an event plaza area. How's that going to work with the water feature being right there? So it seems like that wants to be further away from that. But I do like the subtle, usable, but not like spray park type. I think that makes sense. I like adding that little boardwalk to the amphitheater. I mean, that changes nothing. You could do that at any one of these. That makes a lot of sense. Again, I like access to the water. I love that, and I think other people love that too. I didn't realize, I don't know how active that boat launch or how much business that gets. Is that really a popular thing?
Pretty significant.
I mean, I'd say nix that, but if it's that popular, knock yourself out, so. That's pretty much the highlights of what everybody said, pretty much everything I said, or I agree with Manny on a lot of things.
I would be interested in your thoughts about like having the option to have the pedestrian bridge, like having the building there, then if transportation comes through in the future and can get us the bridge dollars.
I think you design it in such a way you can do that, but if you're going to make it multimodal like you're talking about, I don't think that fits scale here, because you're going to have at least 10 feet wide.
Yeah,
trying to get it
down the other side.
I would say
I don't
that's
think that's
not
really-
how we were drawing it with the,
Yeah.
and we've worked, like Ryan specifically has worked on a pedestrian bridge at Point Defiance that was designed like for bicycles, and it's a different width, it's a different height of like railing.
We're doing one over I-5
Yeah.
Short Line right now, and I mean, it's just like the one you're talking about, Redmond. It's a whole another ball of wax. There's not enough room for that here,
That makes
in my
sense.
opinion. That's my humble.
The bikes go on 102nd, and this is just foot
Yeah.
traffic.
And
That makes
also
sense.
it brings bikes through the park, which I'm not sure. Small
Try to
kids
expand.
around.
Yeah.
Well, with better signage and something to help educate people, that that's an entrance too.
Mhm.
And, you have both sides. Right now, I don't think people see it as an entrance. And so if there's some way, topography or signage or some way, because I understand what you're saying, Nick, about it being multimodal and it's. I'd love to see it. What's that?
Move further east where you have some topography that helps with that. I think that kind of makes sense if you're going to try to do that. And then
The 102nd.
you're going to spend all kinds of money to put a picnic area or whatever on top of the building. What's that really get you? I mean, it's a lot of money, and how much value does that really get you? I don't think it pans out money-wise. That's just my opinion. I think you maximize the trail features and the slough features that you don't have anywhere else. You don't have that in other parks. I mean, if they want that, they can go to any one of these other restaurants up here and sit out on the, out on the sidewalk area. That's just my thought.
I don't think unless I'm wrong, that we're saying we vote for option 1, 2, or 3, but that we provide you with enough, like all of it in some fashion. How are you going to take all this? You guys are very good at that. I can't tell you how much this makes me happy, because this is so much, so many people that I've talked to. I just recently moved from Bothell to Bothell, from North Bothell over to the high school, and particularly when I was in North Bothell, Harris County, that this park still was seen as, gosh, the 4th of July parade is there, and downtown is really short, but we love it. And this park with these kinds of amenities, some kind of combination, I think would just be so important to even the people way up there. Because Centennial Park ain't this. Even Blythe is not this. I just think it would be a tremendous asset.
One other thing I would consider in the play area, but no, I would bring them together. I agree. It's tough to watch two kids that want to go to different players. That shouldn't be. Consider a zip line. Kids love those.
Between the.
Yeah, there you
Say a zip line, you see, I don't know if anybody's been in Seattle and seen that. But consider kids line up and just do that nonstop.
There is that little sort of zip line already there that kids do like at.
It's a weak one, but yeah.
Yeah, well,
It takes up a lot of room, though, it does. But I think I don't know, consider it.
Lauren and Jace, did you have any?
I'll be very fast. Love the ping pong tables. They do that a lot in Switzerland. It's a very similar climate. People bring their own paddles and balls, and super multi-generational and a light lift. So I'm gonna +1 on that. And then the only other thing I would suggest is when you're doing the survey, the next survey, however you do it, is to make sure you communicate enough that you can get feedback based on features, I guess, instead of just options, so that the community doesn't think that they're locked in, but that they're supposed to pick and pull from each what they like.
We've been anticipating, planning for like that development of the survey, knowing it's tricky to get like how to frame those questions and make sure we're helping them.
So one thing, I agree with Nick on the rooftop thing. I thought it was a really cool idea, but I see it as more of like, I'm a very clumsy person. And so me right now, going up those stairs or crossing over, I worry about just injury, and I don't know how much value that would add as well. One thing I would say is there's a lot of focus on getting an engagement, and I'll try and keep this short because I have a couple minutes. But from someone who's been in a lot of different pockets in my age group and a little bit younger, I mentor a lot of younger kids from like ages of 7th grade up to your senior year in high school, and even up to the college level now, because I'm there. I think that if we can try and get a survey out specifically to them, and just because like the skate park sounds like a really cool idea. I actually just saw some kids on skateboards today that were my age, around my age. That's the first time I've seen that, like ever. Like I don't see a lot of kids. I hear about it. There's very small pockets of that within the community, but I feel like if we're trying to draw more, I hate to like negate that idea, but I think there needs to be something different there, and I think we really need to hear that from the high schoolers, from the middle schoolers. And I know you could probably work with the district on that. We get sent like a survey series like every single month, and from somewhere. Sometimes it's from like mental health facilities, sometimes it's from the district. I think that would be the most valuable here, because I'm just not quite sure what there would be a huge active involvement in. I feel like this is very specific. I do think though that some sort of concert, if we could get more concert focus, that would be huge, very huge for people my age for sure. Just because music is so diverse and there's so much diversity here, I think that would be something I'd put the bigger emphasis on for kids my age and a little bit younger. That would be my thoughts on that. That's the only thing that I was concerned with.
What do you like to do when you go to if you're going to a park?
I like to walk my dog. Coming from the veterinary industry and the dog grooming industry, I don't take my dog to a lot of dog parks, but he's also a lab and he has serious boundary issues. So I'm more concerned for his safety than everybody else's safety, because he tends to push a lot of buttons. But no, I'll listen to music. I'll go see a show. I like to go try food. So I kind of just do a loop. Yeah, it really depends on the day. My girlfriend and I also throw a lot of baseball and football.
Is there value for you in a smaller dog park? Like if we could only fit a small dog park here as opposed to like one where you could really run a lab? Is there value in that? Or is it?
Probably not. I mean, just from my experience, even like, there's a lot of doodles. I know you guys see a lot of the doodles, and they have a lot of lab and Aussie and golden retriever in them. And that energy, regardless of if they're 20 pounds or 98 pounds, is really prominent. And so, I mean, from my standpoint, especially for the dogs, and sometimes you get these puppies that are supposed to be like 30 and they end up being 60. So I would say a bigger dog park would be more effective, just because there are still a lot of big dogs or dogs with a lot of big dog energy. And one common trend with doodles is, seriously, you can think you're getting a 35-pound dog and they just magically end up being 70 because you don't know if you're getting like the small poodle side of that or the Labrador retriever side of that. And we've seen a lot of very concerned and shocked clients and patients. So yeah, I think that would be bigger would be better.
Well, I thank everybody for their input here. We have a lot to digest, a lot of great ideas. I feel like we could probably sit here for another hour and a half and discuss this too. But I know we're reaching that 8 o'clock mark. So.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, and I would say as this project moves forward and we dive down into like we define and we dive it down, like we'll get into like, well, what does the play area mean? Like what are those things that want to be in there? And, you know, like right now, again, they're kind of quick moves on it. On a plan just to like kind of, we're almost space planning, just programming. But yes, we'll want to eventually get more specific on what those things are.
And one more point on upcoming process here. So next June, our park board meets on June 13th. So our idea is to have a public open house covering these 3 alternative designs at the park at Bothell. So this will be in conjunction with the scheduled park board meeting. So more details on that. We'll be working with SiteWorkshop a little bit to kind of narrow down what the activities for that day are. But it'll be June 15th, scheduled park board meeting.
And this same conversation goes to council next week, correct? These are some of the other next steps.
Yeah, and
Very
we're going to
exciting.
try and summarize what we heard from all.
And then for the surveys, when is the next survey to go out again? I missed.
Early June.
Yeah.
Early June.
Invite a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Great.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by Sheila. All those in favor? You can run it. You can do it. Say aye.
All right.
Aye. All right. Good night.
Thank you, Wendy.
No worries.
No, I was gonna stack it somewhere.
Oh, gotcha. You're like,
Maybe when my term is
I
up.
don't know if I can.
yeah.
Anything?
Yeah, we can.
No, but
Somehow.